All right. You feel comfortable now, Rick? I was doing this all for you, man. Positive energy to this guy, all right? Last year, he was super nervous, but this year he is not. He's got a smile on his face. He's doing good, all right? So our next presenter, Rick Glass. A lifelong Carroll County resident and Marine Corps veteran, Rick Glass is dedicated to improving the community's quality of life through cannabis. Now, having experienced its positive impact firsthand, he is passionate about dispelling the stigma around cannabis and believes education is key to unlocking its potential for helping others. So tonight, he's going to answer the question, cannabis, hype or healthy? Welcome back, Rick. Come on, buddy.
I am not less nervous than last year, I promise you.
Ready?
You got this, Rick. My name is Rick Glass. I had the opportunity to present at last year's Ignite event and strongly suggest if you want to hear a little more of my backstory to check it out on YouTube. 5 minutes goes fast, so I don't want to waste a whole lot of time. Cannabis science and cannabis education. That's what the focus is going to be. So let's start breaking down the specific compounds and molecules in the cannabis plant. Well, I mean, that's a pretty loaded question. I mean, I think since Maryland has legalized recreational cannabis use, I hear a lot of conversations about rec weed versus medical weed. Not everyone agrees with my stance, but I found a quote that sums up how I feel. Today, I believe there is no such thing as the recreational use of cannabis. The concept is equally embraced by prohibitionists and self-professed stoners, but it is self-limiting and profoundly unhealthy. Defining cannabis consumption as elective recreation ignores fundamental human biology and history and devalues the very real benefits the plant provides. Dennis Perrone, the man who opened the first cannabis dispensary in the U.S., has been derided for saying that all marijuana use is medical. I would make the same point, but a bit differently. The vast majority of cannabis use is for wellness purposes. The exception to the rule is misuse. Any psychoactive material can and will be problematic for some percentage of the population, cannabis included. That was from Steve D'Angelo from the Cannabis Manifesto. We can't forget that not everyone has the same resources and access when it comes to healthcare. If a 75-year-old woman walks into a dispensary and says she has a medical card for clinical anxiety and she needs something to help combat it, and a 21-year-old kid with dreadlocks walks in without a medical card and says, I want to buy some weed that helps me chill out, dude, we have to understand they are both attempting the same thing. We are really getting caught up into a lot of semantics. The medicine is in the cannabis. I personally have a hard time saying that someone with a medical card is using it strictly as medicine and someone without a medical card is using it for recreation. Anyways, back to the cannabis science.
But Rick, I'm concerned about public safety and people being stoned behind the wheel, aren't you?
Public safety should always be a concern, and you should never get behind the wheel of a vehicle high. I want to address what I think has become a lot of fear-mongering around cannabis, not just with this issue, but with other cannabis topics. For every article or science journal that discredits cannabis or talks about its dangers, I can find something opposing that talks about its viability. I think we always need to know where our information is coming from and maybe even go as far as to question agendas. I am a cannabis advocate and supporter, but don't think I should get all my information from iloveweed.com. Nor do I think it's responsible to get your information from ihateweed.com if you are opposed. One of the biggest stats that was thrown around was how Colorado's traffic accidents went up 14%. Colorado was also part of the green rush as well, where millions of people specifically moved to Colorado to partake in cannabis or the cannabis industry. A large amount of people moving to Colorado in a very short amount of time could have heavily influenced those numbers. Numbers don't lie, but they can also be very misleading. If one person was murdered in your town last year, and this year two were murdered, then the homicide rate went up 100%. Your town's murder rate doubled. It's factually accurate, but also very misleading. Here are the driving stats from Zero Deaths Maryland, the same site the state police use. You can see the numbers before legalization and after. I am very involved with the Chesapeake Regional Safety Council in Baltimore County, where myself and other cannabis advocates use cannabis in front of law enforcement and safety supervisors. There is a very big difference between the use of cannabis and the impairment of cannabis. Many use cannabis for anxiety. Do people take anxiety medication before they drive? All the time. I think cannabis can be looked at in the same way. I know I just said nobody should get behind the wheel of a vehicle high, but using your cannabis responsibly and treating it like medicine while educating yourself on how your body responds to specific products is the direction I think we need to go until the science catches up. Folks, I need to get real, and I'm going to try not to get too emotional. Cannabis has saved my life. If I play my cards right, 4/20/2025 will be 8 years without an alcoholic drink and 7 years without a single prescription medication. We have been lied to about a lot, but specifically about cannabis. I know it is going to be difficult to change perspectives overnight, but we need to start opening our minds. I continue to become very disheartened and disillusioned by some in our community that aren't even willing to open their eyes to scientific research. Cannabis is saving lives. While traditional recovery programs like AA and NA have helped so many since its inception, they have a success rate on a very generous scale of 15 to 20%. With those numbers, I have a very hard time understanding why we aren't embracing all ways one can recover or assist in recovery, especially with a substance that you cannot overdose on. My passion for cannabis has led me to start my own cannabis consultation company, CannaCares. I think cannabis education is extremely important, and I think this education would benefit many people in our community and should occur before somebody steps foot into a dispensary. Thank you.
Rick, well done. Well done. And look, I realize we let him go over, but we did give a round of applause for the 7 years sober, so I made an executive decision to allow that to happen. I am the organizer of Ignite Carroll, so I can make those decisions. Well done, Rick. Well done.